It's the voice of the one and only DJ Scream, letting you know that you are now in tune to the Casual Flex, where culture meets sports and casuals are welcome. Now here's your host, Phillip Dukes.
Yo, welcome to episode 23 of the Casual Flex. I am your host, Phillip Dukes, aka Dukes the Scoop. Check me out on Instagram and Twitter at Dukes the Scoop, and make sure you go down there and hit that like and subscribe button. So let's catch a flight down to the plains right quick, and let's see what my boy Hugh Freeze has going on. So we know head coach Hugh Freeze has had the job for a couple of weeks now. He's been able to get out and do some recruiting, doing some in-home visits, but there's been a couple of looming questions that have not been answered until today. Those questions were, who's your offensive and defensive coordinators going to be? Well, I know for sure that we have, or Freeze has, his defensive coordinator, and that will be none other than Ron Roberts of Baylor. Well, most recently of Baylor. So, Ron Roberts, what do I know about him? Veteran coach. He's been coaching for over 30 years. X's and O's type guy. He's been a head coach a few times. I think he was a head coach at Delta State. Also was a head coach at Southeastern Louisiana. Spent 2 years on Louisiana staff, formerly Louisiana Lafayette. And then he got the job at Baylor. Had a really good defense at Baylor last year, y'all. He had one of the top 10 scoring defenses in the country. Last year, 2021, I believe, he was a top 5 in run defense in let me see where he was. Let's get these stats together. I think I got it pulled up right here. Okay, so during Baylor's Big 12 championship run in 2021, Roberts had a top 10 scoring defense. Okay, Roberts, okay. I see you, boy. All right, let's see. But he was let go earlier this month based on the drop-off. I think he was kind of middle of the pack in the Big 12. And I think, and I did hear that, it may have been like some differences in philosophy with him and Dave Aranda. Dave Aranda, who's also a defensive mind. And that it goes to show you that you go from a top unit to losing your job the next year. It kind of lets you know, as far as based on the work, that's not the type of, how can I say this? It didn't probably warrant losing his job. It probably seems like it was more of a difference in philosophy. And if you look at how he was being courted, I know for a fact that he interviewed at Georgia Tech, and I also know that he was a major candidate at Arkansas. So with that being said, this has to be considered a win for Auburn, in my opinion. And I really, it begs the question that Hugh Freeze must feel okay with what he has going in to recruit in the Southeast by going to get somebody with such deep Texas ties. But Louisiana range too. So you lose Ike Hilliard, who wasn't retained, but you got a head coach who's been at Delta State, Louisiana, Southeastern Louisiana. So I think that the synergy between him and Trovon Reed is probably about to get crazy. So I think it's a good hire. I think you need a teacher. I think in the day and age of the transfer portal, where you're bringing in guys who've already been under other coaches, who've seen how different head coaches do it, to have another guy with that type of experience, to have an older, more grizzled veteran coach leading up your defense, it allows Hugh Freeze to kind of focus on more recruiting. And I have to say, from what I've seen with Hugh Freeze, he is a heck of a recruiter. I can't say it any other way. Do I wish that maybe Auburn would have went with somebody, younger, cooler? I really don't. I can't say that I do. I would have liked to. Now, personally, I really would have liked to see T. Will get a shot at it. But I know maybe it wasn't his time. I'm not sure what Freeze had on his mind, but there were some names that kind of interested me. Ron Roberts was a name that came across my my radar maybe last Thursday. I did a little bit of research. I talked to some guys who've been at Baylor, and they say he's a really cool guy. Cool. Gives you that cool uncle feel from what I hear, like a cool uncle. So right now, like the most popular slang term when dealing with somebody in Atlanta is unk. So you want somebody who can be kind of unk. It allows you to be respected, but at the same time allow you to relate. So we'll see how it goes. I think that'll really be good for recruiting from Louisiana, Mississippi, all the way back to Texas. And I think that as far as X's and O's wise, you don't get a whole lot better than him. Somebody who's been able to slow down a lot of those spread offenses that are in the Big 12. So you bring some of that experience to the SEC. It's going to be really interesting to see how he competes with a team like Georgia, who's going to be more physical, and some of the how does he plan on kind of counteracting that physicality that Georgia has. But as far as for a team like Alabama that likes to spread it out and throw the ball around, I think that's an excellent hire. And you've got to say that in order for Hugh Freeze to keep his job, you got to do one thing overall, and that's beat Bama. So I think Hugh Freeze has that as his goal. I think he wants people that are going to give Alabama headaches. He wants people that are going to give Bama, sleeping fits. Like, how are we going to stop this? Somebody who's not going to be scared when the team comes out and throws the ball 50, 55 times a game. That'll definitely help you out against Mississippi State. And Lane Kiffin likes to run the ball, but he does get multiple. So I think that as far as X's and O's, it's a good hire. I don't know a whole lot about his recruiting philosophy. That'll be important. But what I do think, I think this means that Zach Etheridge has to be retained. You got to have an Auburn guy on staff. Now, I'm not the end-all, be-all. When I say Auburn guy on staff, you really have to have one. I haven't seen too many Auburn staffs that didn't have an Auburn guy, at least on the offensive or defensive side of the ball, in probably the last 15 years. I could be wrong. And if I am, make sure you drop it in the comments and let me know. But as far as that goes, I think that does give Zach Etheridge a little bit of security. He's been retained. He's doing a heck of a job right now. Recruiting got a commit from Colton Hood, who's an Auburn legacy, really athletic kid. Probably would be even more highly ranked if he didn't play baseball in the spring. A really accomplished baseball player, and a lot of times he misses the 7-on-7 circuit. Nephew of Auburn, great, a friend of the show, Roger Hood. I know a lot about him, so definitely a good pickup. He has Zach Etheridge does have Kenyon Lee on really seriously considering Auburn in the state championship game at Cedar Grove. Kenyon Lee, the really highly ranked 4-star cornerback, was adorned and draped in Auburn gear. So we'll see how that turns out. So and to have to hire a defensive coordinator who probably doesn't have the experience in Atlanta that Etheridge does, I think that does lend positively for Etheridge staying on staff. But that remains to be seen. I don't make the decisions, and we'll see. We'll see how that shakes out. Now, on the other side of the ball, a really, really interesting hire. Right now, it's not a complete deal, but it looks like former Tulsa head coach Phillip Montgomery, an offensive genius, somebody who's averaged 400 or 500 yards a game for however long he's been at Tulsa, maybe 10 years, maybe 8 years, something like that. I'll get the stats in a minute, but you're bringing in another head coach as a coordinator. Now, I do know that Roberts has been a head coach in the past, but his most recent job was as a defensive coordinator, but he does have that head coaching experience. And you turn right around, you go back, you get another grizzled veteran, somebody a little younger, maybe more in tune. I don't know a ton about him, but every time I watched Tulsa play, had a lot of fire in his eyes, really excitable guy, cool guy seems like. And Phillip Montgomery, you're going to throw the ball a lot. And I think that Freeze wants to score some points. Now, my biggest question is, does this mean that Hugh Freeze is going to relinquish play caller responsibilities totally. And I think in the press conference he said that. So this is a really, really eerily similar hire to when Gus Malzahn hired Chad Morris. And as we saw how that worked out, it looked like, Gus, when things weren't going right, Gus kind of stepped on in there like, let me get that Chad, So we'll see. I've yet to see how Freeze would handle himself in that situation. If things aren't going all the way right, would he step in? But for a guy as highly respected as Montgomery is, also was a high school coach, and I really, really do like coaches who have that high school experience, because it allows you to get into those high schools and have conversations that don't seem forced, because you've got a guy who's been there before. And also it showed high school coaches love seeing one of them. So if you're going to a recruit school and you want a coach to come in, sometimes you don't want the coach to be bigger than life. Sometimes you want somebody who can relate, somebody who can talk to you about some of the struggles. And I think that's going to be huge for high school recruiting. And as we all know, Auburn has left a lot to be desired over the past few years when it comes down to high school recruiting. So getting head coaches who can demand respect on the field, but also go in with a humble and really, I guess, a certain type of gratitude, that every time they walk into a high school, they know that this is where they came from, and to be a ray of shining light to a high school coach who may aspire to get to college. I think that's really important. So I think the Phillip Montgomery hire could be a home run. I think they're 2 home run hires, to be honest. And what it does, like I said, so right now, if you consider something, Auburn right now has 4 head coaches on staff. If you count it, you've got Hugh Freeze. If you count Cadillac Williams, who was the interim head coach for a little while, let's count Lack. Ron Roberts, and 4, Phillip Montgomery. You've got a ton of head coaching experience. And to me, I think in this, like I said earlier, like in a day and age where you're getting guys who have been doing it a certain kind of way, you're going to need people who can control their rooms. You're going to have guys who can go in and say, you know what, this is not going, this is how we're going to do it. When you have so many personalities, and now the culture, it's harder to build a culture in the transfer portal world, because guys are coming in and going out and coming in and going out. The attrition and the turnover is so high in times like these, that to have somebody who can come in and steady the room, steady the offense, steady the defense, allow Hugh Freeze to be a head coach and worry about some of the higher level things, I think it's only a plus. And then you still have an A+ recruiter in Cadillac Williams, who's going to have to increase his his reach. He's going to have to increase what he does based on the fact of now you are, as the associate head coach, you're the secondary face of Auburn. Legendary player, legendary job getting Auburn ready to play over the last 4 games of the season. Now we can find out, is Cadillac going to become that ace recruiter? And with him having to get out of his room and get out of his area and help recruit for the whole team, I saw a whole nother side of Cadillac that I think is going to shake out well for Auburn. So does he become that type of Dale McGee closer on the offensive side of the ball or defensive side of the ball? And then you got a young guy like a Zach Etheridge on the other side, depending on how that works out. I think that this could be a dream team for Auburn. You got the X's and the O's. You got head coaching experience. You got 2 young guys who can go in and be really, really relatable to the high schools. You've got 4 guys, 4 or 5 guys with high school coaching experience. I mean, I think this could really mesh well. And if it doesn't, you've got guys who've got experience, who are well respected, that they'll get a job tomorrow, the same way that Ron Roberts did. So I think it's a win-win situation. I think it's one thing that we just have to see play out. And once it does, you'll be able to make a decision on I mean, you can't say, did you make the right hire yet? So after the season, Auburn fans will be able to go back and say, you know what? I like these hires. One thing I know about John Cohen is that if it's not working, he's going to let you know, and there will be changes made. So, well, that's there you have it, guys. You got 2 coordinators in Auburn. And you just got to leave it there at that point. All right, so let's get into Auburn basketball for a second. Auburn loses their first game of the season to a really talented Memphis team, and they just come out and they look super flat. And it is Chicken Little. The sky is falling on social media and Auburn media. Auburn social media. People are saying, "Oh my goodness, what are we gonna do? We lost the game. This team just doesn't have it." Me personally, I'm so glad that Auburn got punched in the mouth early. They really should have lost a few more games, right? So if this isn't a wake-up call to say, before the SEC season starts, that, hey, look, if we don't get it together now, this is going to hurt us in the SEC season. So some of the things like the lazy defense, not getting back on defense, the ill-advised three-pointers, not hitting three-pointers when they're open, not rotating on defense, and just the careless turnovers. I think it's good to get some of those fixed and to start back getting some more of those effort buckets back. Just the hard backdoor cuts, the extra pass being made, closing off the trap, full court defense, picking those are the things that's become a hallmark of Bruce Pearl teams. So I think that getting that loss in early will help Auburn refocus, and I don't think it'll be. I think this loss to Memphis is a footnote over the course of the season going forward. All right, so while we're on basketball, I got to go talk about the Hawks, man. Is Trae Young a coach killer? I can't say Trae Young is a coach killer. What I can say is he's a young superstar that cares. He's a still young superstar that does have some emotions. I want to say this. When Trae Young was pretty much accosted by Zach Klein of Channel 2, and I didn't think it was fair, but Zach Klein's a veteran. He does a great job. But in this instance, he asked Trae repeatedly about the incident maybe a week ago, however long ago it was, a few days ago, where he didn't play based on, and the rumor is that he didn't play because he wasn't going to start or whatever. And he asked about his absence and why wasn't he on the team. And Trae said no comment. He asked and he asked and he asked and he asked. And I want to say that Trae Young, I appreciate you being able to hold your cool under pressure, because a lot of times we look at athletes as from we pay money to go see you. You're an athlete all the time. So there is no human aspect to an athlete based on the fact that we are fans, and with us being fans, we are entitled to answers to questions that you don't want to answer when it's regarding the team. We're entitled to making opinions on your personal life. We're entitled to call you names at the game. And that's all what encompasses being a professional athlete from a fan's perspective. Now, from a professional athlete's perspective, which I can't really speak on, but I do have a ton of friends that are or have been professional athletes, it's like I'm still a human. So being able to keep your cool in a situation where if there wasn't a microphone there, if there wasn't a whole lot of people there, I don't think those questions get asked in the same manner. For Trae Young to be able to keep his cool in that situation, I got a ton of respect for him, and that was a sign of maturity that I think is pointing in the right direction. Even if they say he's been immature, I think that was a really, really big sign of maturity going forward for Trae Young. There's no doubt in my mind he doesn't ask DeJounte Murray the same question the same way. I don't think he does that. Zach Klein, maybe, maybe he would. But yeah, that line of questioning, it's not even a line of question. I think there were great questions. I think that the tone that came along with it was a little bit overboard. And, going forward, seeing how Trae responds to adversity, and if he can respond that same way, being cool as he was, I think, and holding himself, because you can see it in his eyes, he wanted to say something. So I think it'll go a long way for the Hawks, because at this point, it looks like Trae Young is about to go through his second head coaching in a young career. Lloyd Pierce is gone. Nate McMillan, now they're having a little spaz. You got rumblings about John Collins again. You don't know. There were times where there were rumors of a rift between John Collins and Trae Young in the past. So a lot of the signs are pointing towards, what do you do? Do you go with the superstar player? Is he being coddled? Or maybe he needs somebody to kind of, pull his coattail a little bit and, say, hey, young gun, calm down. You're a star, but you got a long way to go. And the team goes as you go. And that's the truth. The Hawks go as Trae Young goes. So we'll see. There are super high expectations after trading multiple first-round picks to get DeJounte Murray to get in the backcourt. But I always said the Hawks were going to need to do more in the front court in order to be successful coming out of the East, because you got guys like Embiid, you got guys like Giannis. You got Cleveland who can run 7-footers at you. You got Vucevic. You got guys, that you got teams that really, really get aggressive when it comes to rebounding and playing defense in the paint. And that's somewhere that I think that if Atlanta is reduced to playing on the perimeter and having to shoot shots that, they usually hit at a 30% clip versus being able to, pound it out and defend, shots that you can get at a 50% clip. Volume, you've got to be really special to just outshoot somebody. I'm not saying that the Hawks can't. I really think they have really good pieces, but they are going to need that enforcer. They are going to need that presence that can be there when Capella can't, and that can help Capella sometimes when they when teams make a concerted effort to pound it out, like we saw with Miami when Miami was, with Capella out against Miami in the playoffs last year. Bam Adebayo went crazy in the paint, and they were able to use him to be able to send waves of defenders at Trae Young on the perimeter, and they never let him get in the rhythm. So we'll see what the Hawks do. It's going to be really interesting to see how the Hawks rebound from this bit of drama that they're having right now. And going forward, I think that if the Hawks do make that trade and get a really solid big body in here, I think that the Hawks can be a team to reckon with, a force to be reckoned with for the foreseeable future. But yeah, I tell you what, so it's 9:35 in Atlanta. I'm late for another podcast. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to wrap up early. All right. I promise you, I got a really, really, really good guest coming on this Thursday. So make sure you're here. Make sure you're make sure you're liking it. Make sure you're subscribing it. Make sure you know what? If you don't do anything else, remember this. The password for a free $25 cash app is freeze. If you go to one of my social medias and you're the first person to DM me freeze, I'm cash apping you $25 on the spot. Shout out to my winners from last week. Hey guys, man, much love, much respect. It's the holiday season. Treat your people right. Tell them you love them every day because life is short. For sure. Dukes the Scoop. I'm out.